course, remember the great Don Shula who passed away yesterday. We've heard from Dan Marino today. We've heard from Larry Zonka today. And we got some more stuff for you coming up as well. Pat Riley yesterday with a great statement, as Pat Riley is one to do. He sent out this statement. It says, "There was no better man or coach in the history of the profession than Don Shula. He was tough, courageous, and authentic leader with great integrity in his pursuit of perfection, which he achieved. I followed his coaching philosophies with great eagerness since moving to Miami, and my respect for him helped mold me not only as a coach, but also as a man. My heart and prayers go out to his wife, Marianne, and his entire family at this time. May God bless you as you continue to spread your light while teaching in your new locker room. Rest in peace, Coach." Dwayne Wade yesterday posted a photo of Don Shula on Instagram with the caption, "A Miami legend, Don Shula, rest in heaven." Udonis Haslam putting a RIP to the great coach Don Shula. Looked like they were at some award ceremony at that time together. But yeah, so there you have it from two Heat members who are icons of Miami sports, talking to the OG icon of Miami sports, the guy who kind of was the bedrock of it all when his team was the one in town, and really continued it through just a complete generation of sports, which is insane.
Yep.
Insane.
To think how many years he coached? 25 years. I think he had six losing seasons. 5?
2.
Yeah, 2 with the Dolphins.
Two with the Dolphins. Okay. So think about that, and I remember, man. I'm telling you, I remember when they changed and went with Jimmy Johnson and switched from Shula. It was kind of the same thing. He can't get us over the hump, And now for the last 20 years, the Dolphins have been looking to get back to that. So I'm like I said, be patient with this process, and let's see where it ends up.
Yeah, he had 2 losing seasons.
2 losing seasons.
Yeah.
Now, nobody, like, you remember how they wanted him out when he left, right?
He had 1976, 6-8, and 1988. They were a decade apart.
That's 2 decades. Did it say 78 or 78?
78 and 76 and 88. So 12 years apart.
Right. So he didn't even have a losing record when he left.
Nope, 9-7. I think he was his last year.
They made the playoffs and then they lost in the first round.
Right. Oh, that was that 60-something. Was that the Jay?
No, that was Jimmy Johnson. That was Jimmy Johnson.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they lost to Buffalo. It was like 37-22. They got beat pretty good.
Speaking of Buffalo, Robbie, do we have one individual we haven't heard from to give his thoughts on the great Don Shula? Let's hear from this individual who, of course, had to have some words of the passing of Don Shula yesterday.
Hey, Twitter world, it's me, yours truly. Well, the NFL lost one of the great ones today, Don Shula. My condolences to his family. Shula was the one coach I most wanted to play for during my career. Unfortunately, I had to play against him twice a year in Buffalo against Miami, and never in all of those years did we ever win one game. That no-name defense, boy, were they good. Do you know in back-to-back Super Bowls, winning Super Bowls for them, they gave up one touchdown in 2 Super Bowls. Think about that. The other game, Yo Premium on the special teams, tried to throw the ball, and Mike Bass took it the other way. But, boy, were those guys good. What's sort of amazing is, only one of those defensive players, Nick Bonacani, is in the NFL Hall of Fame. Not Jake Scott, not Dick Anderson, not Manny Fernandez. Somehow that doesn't seem right. This morning, talking to 2 of my buddies, talking about Shula, we were putting together a Mount Rushmore of NFL coaches, and 3 guys were cinches: Vince Lombardi, Don Shula, of course, and Bill Belichick. We kind of differed on the 4th guy. One guy's older than me even, and he said George Halas. Then we debated Tom Landry, Joe Gibbs, who had a remarkable career, and the guy that I went with was Chuck Noll. He won 4 Super Bowls. 4 Super Bowls. That's saying something. It was tough for me to leave off a guy who, one of my favorite people, who actually benched me at the end of my career. But and that was Bill Walsh. But Bill didn't even win 100 games, even though his effect on the game of football, especially offense, is undeniable. But maybe he and Shula coaching against each other again up there. In any event, my condolences. Rest in peace. I'm just saying. Take care. Stay healthy.
Beautiful tribute from Juice. I do like how he has to still get his catchphrases in, though, even in the somber moments.
Yeah.
But he changed his tone. You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But
letting him know.
It's pretty amazing.
Never beat him, though.
Yeah, in fact, the Bills in the
never beat him.
I tell you guys that.
The Bills in the entire decade of the 70s, they didn't win a single game. The Dolphins won 20-0 in the 70s against the Bills.
Jesus.
Hey, I'm telling you, I beat Pittsburgh my first NFL game, never beat them again. Ever.
And I think Joe Rose played in the first game that they lost in 1980, and that was his first year.
Hey, man, why you got to bring up old stuff?
Sorry.
That's... Of course, we're getting the OJ jokes. Leave it to OJ to figure out who gets the final cut on the Mount Rushmore. Yeah, that's about right. It was a beautiful tribute from Juice.
It was. I mean, he would know he played against him, and he did make well, think about this. Say something to my man Juice. If they had a bunch of guys in the Hall of Fame, it wouldn't have been a no-name defense.
Boxed in.
Right? Right?
You've been boxed in.
Isn't that part of that? Right?
Oh, man. Well, look, man. It is cool seeing it is cool seeing everybody kind of realize, whoa, that is an insane amount of winning.
Wait, here's like, you think of that, right? Here's what I took away from that. What year did OJ win the Heisman?
I was like 68 or maybe 65.
He won the Heisman the year I was born. Okay? No, now listen. He won the Heisman the year I was born. And we played against the same coach.
Jeez.
Think about that. Think about that. Put that in perspective. That's how long Don Shula was coaching.
Jesus. Wow.
So he became the coach of the Dolphins when I was 3 years old. And I got all the way to the NFL and played against him.
Did you was there anything as far as like going up against Don Shula teams? Was there anything like in regards to what they prepped for differently? Like just knew they were going to be on their P's and Q's or whatnot?
Well, at the time, Dan Marino was kind of coming down a little bit, but not really. And one of the things you had to do was you had to be ready because he had a cannon. And in the game that we played, he got hurt. He tore his Achilles. Oof. He tore his Achilles and Bernie broke his ankle in the same game.
Jesus.
So we had 2 backup quarterbacks. Guess who the backup quarterback was? Scott Mitchell. First pass he threw, 98 yards the other way.
That's hard times.
Right? And they ended up winning the game. Scott Mitchell went on to have a good season, and then Detroit signed him to a big contract. So, yeah, man. It's amazing when you think of how long coaches have been around and think about it, from this standpoint. Look at how old I am now. And Bill Belichick was my coach for 4 years. Like it's
with that hippie hair that he had.
Right. To be able to do something, okay, in that profession that long. And I'm more than sure there's basketball players that have, the same thing with, say, a Pat Riley or Larry Brown or Popovich. Just they've been doing it for so long.
Well, you know what's cool about Shula? I was reading some stuff from Mercury Morris about this, because Mercury and him had like a really kind of a rough relationship when he played, because
Right.
Mercury being the spirit that he was, getting suspended all the time. But how he was like afterwards, he was like a father figure to me, like, just always kind of leading me after the football life. And I think that's one of the things that Riley has too, where it's like a lot of the times professionally, things don't always end that great with Pat Riley, like, but still you see a guy like Deion Waiters who, okay, it ended rough, but Deion's actively coming out and telling you, like, I have a lot of love for Pat Riley because he cared about me as a person. And I think Shula probably had a lot of that too.
Well, because here's how that works, is that at the time you're pissed off. Why not? Hell yeah, I was mad that Baltimore got rid of me. You're damn right I was mad. I had nothing but love for Ozzie though. And those two, those two things don't mix. Sometimes a business decision or a decision that has to be made as far as you are concerned, or how a coach has to handle you to get the most out of you, you might not be able to handle. But at the end of the day, when you look back on it and say, you know what, that guy was helping me be the best player I could be, I respect that. How about this one? You ready for this stat?
Kind of messed up though. He was your guy. Like,
yeah. You ready?
It's kind of rough.
Don Shula coached against George Halas and Bill Belichick. Halas was coaching in 1920. Bill still coaches in 2020.
That's crazy.
Hey man, it's something to be said about people that, especially in coaching profession. I'm throwing baseball out because it almost seems like once you're a decent baseball manager, you can just move around forever. Right?
I don't even know who you would consider like the most revered manager. Is Joe Torre like kind of the last? Tony La Russa. Those are probably
Tony La Russa, Joe Torre. Wait, who's the coach for Houston now?
Dusty Baker.
Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker been a manager for a while.
He's been there for a while, but a lot of people look at Dusty. I feel like people look at Dusty Baker as a guy who kind of like tore through arms and things like that. Like, I don't know if he's looked upon as a revered manager.
Okay. All right.
Like a Don Shula.
I mean, but that's baseball's kind of different.
It is. I would say Bobby Cox, probably another one.
Yeah.
But like, the thing is,
you have to go same organization.
But that's a position in its own right where it's like people don't think manager matters anymore.
Right. That's why I didn't use baseball. Again. How about basketball? Like basketball, you know, if you stick around for a while, like what Greg Popovich has done, and I think the next 10-year coach is Spo, isn't it?
Yeah, Spo and maybe Carlisle. I don't know who's more, Carlisle or Spo. I feel like it's Spo.
I think Carlisle's been coaching longer, but he also was on two different teams.
Right.
Actually, maybe even three, because he had Indiana and Detroit.
So yeah, I mean that's crazy. That's hard. It's hard to do. Now, the circumstances that get you that gig sometimes have a lot to do with how long you're in there, right? What Pat Riley has done is that when he does step away, there's a lot of people in place to keep the train moving, to keep everything going in the way in which it was going and to have success for the long haul.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want the Heat organization to be passed off with flash, kind of like it was with the Dolphins. Like, it was passed off. People were, Jimmy was beloved down here because it was, a Hurricanes coach coming back, but it just wasn't the same. It just never was the same having that legacy that Shula had. And now they're still searching for answers. Really, they've been scrambling for it with big splash hires. Between bringing in Jimmy and then bringing in Nick, right, and then bringing in Parcells as the czar with his little minions of Ireland and all that type of stuff. Like, I just think that you can end up scrambling, and it's pretty crazy to think about that day and age where maybe it's a hard thing to have anymore in today's sports because the patience is so lacking. But I mean, like Popovich and Spo, like, man, that's the rarity. I don't know how much of that there's going to be.
Here's the other thing you have to realize is that when Jimmy took over in Dallas, they had a very similar situation as to what Flo had this year.
Yeah.
They had a boatload of picks. They traded a lot of assets to get more picks. So they were able to acquire and draft a ton of young talent over a 2 or 3 year stretch that enabled them to be put in that position. So when you look at what the Dolphins are doing now, very similar situation as to what Jimmy had, because before that, Jimmy was 1-15. Was he 1-15 his first year? And they drafted Troy Aikman that year. And they just threw Troy Aikman to the Wolves. So you have that situation, and then they acquired all those picks with the Herschel Walker trade, and they were put in a very similar position as the Dolphins are in now. The Dolphins didn't have to be 1-15 to get there, though, but they did trade a lot of assets for draft picks and a lot of young talent. So we'll see how this plays out. But the circumstances are...
Yeah, you're saying throw Tua to the Wolves.
No, I'm not.
No, that's what I got out of it, right? So
Troy
you're saying
Aikman didn't come in with a busted hip.
Could have gotten busted though. I mean, he got lit up that year. You and I are the same.
The most passes touchdown passes Troy Aikman threw in a year was like 20 something.
Didn't he mock Patrick Mahomes when Patrick Mahomes was like he passed his I think career touchdowns or something like that, and he goes,
right.
Call me when he has a third. Oh yeah, it said Patrick Mahomes. I think it was like had a third of Troy Aikman's career touchdowns within like a year, and he says, call me when he has a third of my rings, which of course now he does.
Buxton,
Troy.
You've been boxed in.
Ooh, how about this one? Spoelstra is not going down as a legendary coach. It would always be Pat Riley a little bit. How do you think about that?
I don't agree with it I don't like that, but I don't disagree with him because I do think that Spo has been, first of all, I think like for the longest time, Spo has been hit upon as one of the young coaches of the league. And it's like, man, he's been doing it forever. We're still hitting him with that. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it's probably he's gonna have to need something that is a little detached of it. If he's able to get back to the finals or win another championship. But man, if people are doing all this reminiscing, right, of Phil Jackson and all this reminiscing of The Last Dance, like you can't do it without the horses, man. You just can't. Like out of all of this stuff, if you don't think the guy's a good coach, I don't know why you wouldn't believe in that. Like to think about all these guys, right? Like a guy like Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson, he told Duncan to go down to the G League, shoot 23s a game, and go guard the best player. And now look what this guy has done for your team. And if you don't think the guy's a good coach, putting that plan in place for the guy, what would convince you? He's got to win a championship without LeBron. Like that's the list.
I don't think here. One of the things that makes Spo a good coach to me is his ability to adjust to the talent that he has.
Agreed.
It doesn't always mean that the talent's going to be good enough. Like when LeBron and D Wade and all those guys, they preach nothing but defense. And he does preach defense now, but he knows for a fact he got a bunch of guys can't play no defense on that team.
Yeah.
So how are they still winning games? Like they have found a way to keep working the system, using the talent they have, and adjusting to win football games. And basketball games. And at some point, you got to give Spo credit for that. Because guess what? Riley will quickly tell you, oh, I ain't doing that day-to-day stuff down there. He is quick to tell you that. So he's putting it all on Spo.